Hello, everybody. This is Joe Szymanski of Elections Daily, bringing you another 2021 Virginia candidate interview. And today, I am happy to say we have our first candidate for delegate on with me today. I have with me Nick Clemente. He is going to be the Republican candidate from the 10th District, which is mainly based in Loudoun County. Nick, thank you for coming on with me today.
Thank you, Joe, for having me.
So, my first question for you, Nick, is what made you decide to run for delegate?
Wow, there's a lot of things, but the big thing is growing up, I struggled with dyslexia, and I was thinking a lot about how I would be falling majorly behind if I was forced to learn from home. And at first, I understood, okay, we got to get the kids up and running, learning from home. But as time went on, particularly this school year, and I just felt devastated for the kids. And I thought really hard about the kids and what they were going through, missing milestones and rites of passages. And then I just started talking to a few kids. Some were dyslexic, some were just, mainstream students. And, I really realized that they needed somebody who was going to be their voice, and not just on the school closure stuff, but just some of the other stuff that goes on in the schools. And at the end of the day, politicians on both sides just care about those who can vote. And I realized that the students, they need to have a voice on things that affect their daily lives, whether or not they're in school or, and also, at the end of the day, I also kind of decided that I really wanted to try to inspire some kids, because not just the dyslexic kids or kids with learning disabilities, but all the kids were struggling. And, I thought maybe if I told my story and went after my dream, I might inspire one or two kids to chase their dreams and, persevere over adversity. And one of the things that has been really touching over the past several months since I've been in is kids reaching out to me and telling me their stories and what they struggle with. And just yesterday, I had a kid send me a email saying that I'm dyslexic, and you're giving me courage to speak up about it and feel okay in my own shoes. And every time I hear that, it just warms my heart. And I said from day one that this would be a victory for me if I just inspired one kid or one person to believe in themselves and persevere through these hard times. And so far, there's tons of people who I've inspired just by giving them the power and belief to share their stories, and it kind of cascades from there, because when other people feel the courage to speak up and talk about their own adversities and struggles, it impacts other people. And that was really my big goal when I decided to jump in, as I knew people needed some inspiration, and I knew if I could give people the courage to share their stories, that more people would be touched, even if it wasn't by my run, but indirectly. And that was kind of what pushed me over the edge, is that, one, we needed to get the kids back to school, and two, people needed something to feel good about. And that's kind of a long about answer, so I apologize about that.
It's perfectly fine. It's a good answer. So, but next question to you then is, how did you first get involved in Virginia politics?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a crazy story also. My grandma, when I was growing up, my dad and mom worked to build a business. And so I was the oldest. And so my grandma was, early on, she was like child care. She was summer camp. And grandma was, my grandma Jan, she was a political activist. And so she, when I was 8 years old, was the Virginia Virginia Federation of Republican Women president, And so I went all across the state with her, and going back to what I said earlier about this kind of being something I always dreamed of doing. Since I remember I was just thinking about this today when I was driving into work. I remember being like 8 years old and door knocking or at a campaign event. I don't remember the specifics, but we were doing something for the delegate who represented the Great Falls. I think his name was Vince Callahan. And I remember saying to myself as a little kid, I said, this is what I want to do. I want to help people. I want to serve people. And the silly thing is, for years I thought I was too stupid to even door knock after Grandma kind of left the scene. That it used to be 24/7, but then she kind of transitioned to being Grandma 24/7. But it wasn't until college that I learned about a self-fulfilling prophecy that I realized I could be involved in politics, and the mind is, you tell yourself you can do something, well, then you can do it. But if you tell yourself you can't, well, then you're not going to do it. And so Grandma gave me the bug, and then in college I kind of learned to, just because I was dyslexic didn't mean I wasn't as smart as someone else, and that kind of is when it came full circle, and that's when I fully got engaged. And when I came home from college, I ran a campaign for a local supervisor in Fairfax, a guy named Mike Fry, and Mike also kind of showed me the ropes, and Mike kind of had a safe race, and Mike said, you can either just work for me, or you can go out and help everyone else. And so I, started working with the local high school and some of the local Republican clubs, and we ended up knocking tens of thousands of doors with our volunteer army for several of the state Senate candidates. And it was a really kind of a drinking from a fire hose, but it was a great experience, and I learned a lot from it. And ever since then, I haven't looked back.
Yeah. So Republicans lost the seat you're running for, the 10th District, in 2017 and failed to get it back in 2019. And at the presidential level, it's only trended more towards the Democratic Party. Why do you think you're the right candidate, though, to flip the seat back for the Republicans?
Well, that's a great question. I would say that if you look at the demographics, especially where this seat is won out in the eastern part of the district, the people are about my age, a little bit older, millennials, the generation before millennials, but it's a younger demographic group, and I understand this age group because I grew up in it, and I think that one of the things that happens is I had a friend who just moved into the district, and he came from Arlington, and he had a apartment there, and he had a utility bill, and then he moves into a 4,000 square foot house out here, and he's a budget guy, but then he didn't anticipate how much his utility bill would be, and so that's killing him. I mean, he has a good job and whatnot, but he's trying to start a family, and now he has like $250 energy bill a month, and that's kind of what my opponent and the current majority did, is what I like to call living adjustments, and they pumped up the cost of living adjustments here, and in the midst of a pandemic, and then you got the county up here saying, oh yeah, we lowered real estate taxes, but okay, that's cheap. Well, what they really did was they lowered the real estate tax, but they jacked the assessment, so everybody's paying more taxes, and so that is what is going to, or what is affecting my generation in the district, and so they move out to Loudoun because the cost of living is cheaper, and they can buy a house and achieve the American dream. And then over the last 2 years, the current majority in Richmond has made that next to impossible. And so I think by being fiscally prudent and understanding that Loudoun represents the American dream, and that's why people come to Loudoun, is to have their piece of the American dream. And I think that is really going to be a wedge issue for me, and I think that is something that's going to resonate with voters. And also, it's I don't know how old you are, Joe, but it's our turn to take the wheel here, because the generations before us, my opponent's generation, I mean, they've racked up debt nationally, they've mismanaged money, and that by the time that we have to start paying the price for their fiscally irresponsible decisions, we already have such a hole nationally that we got to dig out of, and so I think we have to get in, our generation, and solve these problems. We got to stop sitting back, and I think that message, and I've knocked a lot of doors, it resonates. Even with the older generations in the precincts where this district is won and lost, they like my age, they like that I'm younger, and they routinely say to me, like, this is, it's your turn, and it's our turn, to try to figure out how we get out of this. Granted, I'm running for state office, but the national debt affects us at the state level because we rely so much on the federal government, especially in Northern Virginia, because we have it's essentially a company town. The federal government is our company for our Northern Virginia economy, so we got to find a way to diversify our economy here, and we cannot rely on the federal government. So the long story short, we have to step up, and we have to fight to have a seat at the table, because their bad decision making is something that is going to hurt our future and our economic possibilities moving forward.
Yeah, and I next question here. I thought this was very interesting. So when I was looking on your website at your main priority policies, the first priority you mentioned is focusing on mental health across the Commonwealth, which I feel is something that isn't something you'd normally see a candidate do, is place mental health as the first priority they want to focus on their website. So why do you feel the need to place a big focus on mental health as a priority to deal with if you're elected delegate?
Oh, wow. There are a lot of reasons. I mean, for starters, I'm 33 years old, and I was reading something a couple days ago that the number 2 cause of death in 2020 in the state of Virginia for the 10 to 34-year-old age group, so my age group, was suicide. And that's not counting the exponential rise in attempted suicides. And for me, it's something that is near and dear to my heart personally. I had friends over the years commit suicide, attempt suicide, and also, of course, my fiance's brother committed suicide. So it's something that she's also very passionate about. And when I hear the kids, when I talk to the kids about how depressed they are, I mean, it's great that the kids are now playing sports, okay? But not every kid plays sports or acts in plays. And so for a kid who's not acting in plays or playing sports, and now they can't go to school, I mean, how depressing and isolating is that? And then you look at it, 10 to 34, who were the people who lost a lot of jobs, over the past year? It's people in our age group who were the ones furloughed or laid off. And so that causes depression, like severe depression. And so mental health before the pandemic was a major issue in America, a major issue in Virginia, a major issue in Loudoun County. And to me, the pandemic has made the decisions, the shutdowns, shutting down the schools, shutting down the farmers markets, shutting down, businesses. even for someone who has a job, but now they're told they can't go into their office and they're working from home. Great, you have a job, but now you're socially isolated. And as human beings, we need social interaction, and it's gone on too long, and we need to get people out. We need to get the kids back in school, because the issue with mental health is that you could be the most mentally sound person and go through this year and have so much mental health damage and and not be able to recover. And even one of the things that my next door neighbor is actually works for Loudoun County in the mental health department, and they're inadequately funded. Both parties routinely cut mental health, and it's something that we got to focus on. And most importantly, what we really got to do is we have to destigmatize it. There's a lot of communities that throughout Virginia that there's a negativity around mental health. We have to destigmatize it, and so by talking about it as a issue, I feel that we can start that process. I'm young. It's going to be our generation that destigmatizes mental health, a lot of these things. And I'm not going to lie, growing up with dyslexia and feeling different, I know what it's like to have low self-esteem, and low self-esteem can lead to mental health issues. I had a supportive family, and I just kind of had something in me that's always felt like I was being tested for doing something like this. But some people don't have that, and they don't have a supportive family or a network of friends who believe in them, or teachers who believe in them, like I did at the dyslexic school, that I went to. And so we have to start the conversation, and that's very critical.
Yeah. So next question here, and I feel it's something that comes up every year in the Virginia legislature. Virginia's legislature is only part-time. They only meet 30 or 45 days a year, depending on the year. But a conversation that always comes up is whether or not it should become a full-time legislature. What's your opinion on that?
I'm adamantly opposed to that. The problem with making a full-time legislature is then you're creating career politicians at the state level. We already have enough of those federally. This is one of the good things about a part-time legislature is it requires you to not go hide out in Richmond and just come back when you need to campaign. Once again, different in Northern Virginia, because you can be the congressman from these districts or suburban Maryland, and you can drive to the Capitol and drive home. But if you're the congressman from Hawaii, you're gonna fly down to DC, and you might go home here and there, but not that often. And so by making it a full-time legislature, it's going to take the power away from the people, because these delegates will then be in Richmond half the year, 3/4 of the year. And, the ones in the safe district will never be home because they don't need to really campaign. And at the end of the day, working in the community, I work for a construction association, so I deal with small businesses and minority-owned businesses all the time. And if I was a full-time delegate, I would lose touch with reality and what people are really struggling with. And I would now be more focused on keeping my job as a delegate to pay my bills than what the people need. I got a job that helps me pay my bills. I'm doing this because I care about people. Once you do that and you make it a full-time position, oh man, it just doesn't become about the people. It becomes about you and your family and what's yours and how do you pay your bills. And people lose sight of what is the reason why they're there. And I think staying involved in the community through your day job is important, and it's what makes Virginia so unique. I'm kind of a nerd myself, and I look at like California and New York and yeah, I see that these legislatures are like kind of full time, but not really. But then they're making six figures to be like a state senator in California. I mean, what? That's absurd. And so I just, it's bad for the taxpayers. Now then the delegates are going to make more money. You know, that's ridiculous. And it's also, it's just, we have enough career politicians. Sorry, that is my take on that one. And that's another reason why I like how the governor's term limited. You know, it just, it takes, it allows more people to have an opportunity to serve when it's part-time.
Speaking of former term-limited governors, Terry McAuliffe is running again, and most people and most analysts consider him the de facto favorite to be elected governor again. So let's say in this hypothetical scenario, he is elected governor again, but Republicans are able to flip the House of Delegates, with one-year seats being the crucial flips that get them back control. What would your personal style be for working with the governor's office then in that situation?
That's a situation. I think, Terry, when he was governor 4 years ago, and we had the majority, they did some good things for the economy. I mean, they working together, the Republican General Assembly and McAuliffe, I mean, they laid the groundwork for Amazon to come here. So I'm not going to be the type of person who draws a line in the sand and says, oh, the governor's the opposite party, so I'm not going to find a way to work with him. Terry is, he gets business, and, if he, of course, I would hope one of our guys or gals will win it, but I think that if he is governor with a Republican legislature, I think we will be able to get stuff done. My biggest worry is that he becomes governor and he maintains the Democratic majority in the House. And everybody says Terry wasn't I'm talking about my independent friends or some of my, lean Republican friends. They said Terry wasn't a bad governor. And I always say, yeah, because he had a Republican legislature that wasn't, that was keeping him in check. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, we all know why Terry's running again. He wants to be president, and he came out being governor as Virginia being seen as a moderate. And that's not the current direction of the Democratic Party. I mean, the Democratic Party is going far left. And Terry knew that Joe Biden had that lane. And so he's running for governor again so he can work on his liberal bona fides. He can cozy up with the trade unions, the teachers unions. He can cozy up with the environmentalists who want to raise our taxes. And he, when Terry was governor last time, Virginia was one of the best places to do business. A great place for employees to have good paying jobs. If Terry becomes governor again with a Democratic majority, the floodgates are going to open up with liberal special interests that are not good for the, the mom who wants to get her kids back to school so she can go back to work, or all of the women who are now out of the workforce because they now have to play teacher because the teachers unions don't want to go to work. And so that is the issue with Terry. So if Terry's governor and we have a Republican majority, we'll get back to making Virginia the best place to do business. If Terry's governor with a Democratic majority, we're going to be no different than California. And so that is a great question. But it is something that I am worried about. There's another thing that kind of motivated me to run is because if he's governor with a Democratic majority, this state it's going to go down the toilet. And I think that he's a formidable candidate. He can raise money, but he's also responsible for bringing Tom Steyer's money into Virginia. And I have a lot to say about Tom Steyer and what a hypocrite he is, but we'll save that for another time.
All right. So Do you think Republicans in Virginia, and we kind of already talked about this, how you've already mentioned how you're this younger, newer type of candidate, do you think Republicans in Virginia, you need to recruit more candidates in your mold to gain some ground back in the suburbs, which they have lost a lot of ground in, particularly in Northern Virginia and particularly in Loudoun County?
I think that Democrats are running young candidates, so by defect, we also need to run younger candidates. I think that Virginia is such a diverse state, and I'm not just talking about ethnically or racially. I'm talking about just economically, and not individually, but like there's so many different economic centers across the state. And so, one of the things that makes it hard in Northern Virginia running young is this area is we have more people in Northern Virginia who have graduate degrees, like, percentage-wise, than some other parts of the state have people who have college degrees. So one of the things that makes it harder in Northern Virginia for young people to run is that people are very educated, and there's a lot of self-made people here, and so people, it makes it a lot harder. But in other parts of the state, yes, I think it would be a lot easier. You look down in Southwest Virginia, Will Wampler got elected pretty young. Will Moorfield got elected pretty young, and it's a younger. Politics is a young man's game, but up here, it's so expensive to just live that how can you find a opportunity to run for office, and so the cost of getting in up here is much harder. You got to raise a lot more money, and so yes, I think the party should recruit younger, but we should also not just focus on young. We should focus on what's right for the district. And for example, over in the 40th, I don't think he's the nominee yet, but on I think on Saturday maybe. If Harold Pion becomes the nominee over in the 40th, he's right for that district. It's not about age all the time. That district my fiance is also Korean, but that district has a very large Korean population, and Harold is what's right for that district. So if he becomes the nominee, the party did a great job. And then over in now I'm drawing a blank, but if Mike Allers becomes the nominee against Lee Carter, whoever takes that seat, that's another really good recruit if he can get the nomination over there, because he's the type of kind of hard-nosed type of guy that could beat Lee Carter. Because I think you and I both know Lee Carter's running for his delegate seat again. So I think it matters who's the incumbent, what the district makeup is, what's the age demographic, who has the resources. I like to knock doors. Who's a hard worker, and I think I don't know all the candidates running or all the nominees, but I think we have some pretty good ones. Tara Durant running against Josh Cole. I've been really impressed. I don't know her, but I've been really impressed with her. And so I think it's not just about age. It's about, having a good amount of women, a good amount of minority candidates, and most importantly, just people who care about their community and will focus on the local issues, not the national issues like some of these Democrats are doing in Richmond. And the things that make Virginia great.